our guest today, Andrei Klinsevich. People who are familiar with the show might remember episode 10, where I had the opportunity to speak with his father, Franz, a Russian senator. Andrei is an expert. I think people who watch Russian TV see him. He's a frequent guest on shows providing his expertise. He's a Russian officer or former Russian officer. He was an officer in the Special Forces Regiment of the Airborne Troops. So not just any officer, but it's an honor and a privilege to have you on today. Seymour Hersh just published an article about the destruction of the Nord Stream pipelines. In this article, he points a condemning finger at the role played by the United States and Norway in attacking a critical piece of European energy, a European energy system. What is Russia doing about this? What's your take on this? My understanding is that Russia claims that they have done their own investigation, they have their own conclusions. Now that something like this has come out, what's Russia's next step?
You know, it's a good question how our political and military leaders are going to react to that, because it is very important, but under the current circumstances, probably it's going to be kind of postponed decision. We do understand that this special military operation is being conducted, since there is some fingerprints of the NATO armies which attacked the infrastructure, but the activity was taken, there was no marks on the explosive, there were no fingerprints on the explosive, there were no made in Britain, made in the USA explosives. Probably there was some debris under the surface, but at the high level, we'll be honest, there was a marine operation, there was explosives in several spots. From our understanding, the American helicopter, which at that point of time was participating in that operations, probably submerged special timer machine, and there was explosive in advance, and it was expected in some time. The helicopter which came back from the special marine vessel and was in this area, probably it submerged the special timer for the explosive, but it will be very difficult to prove. We do understand that, but under the circumstances of this geopolitical confrontation which we see right now with the collected and united West under the leadership of the US, will be difficult to do anything. It is important to see that there is a kind of attack not against Europe, but not against Russia, but against Europe. Now we're switching our pipelines of gas to Asia. That's going to give a huge impetus to India development, Pakistan, and those countries which lacked some deficit. So the supply of gas and the supply of oil increased more than fourfold. It's 400% to India. So again, an opportunity to get access to the cheap resources.
Here in the United States, we're led to believe that the new round of sanctions targeting Russian oil and gas is going to be very effective. You live in Russia. How do you feel the impact? Do you feel the economic impact? Do you feel that the Russian economy is damaged, is shrinking? Or, as you indicated, is Russia able to find sufficient alternative outlets for its energy?
You know, in the past, apart from military service, I also had the official state service, and I was the employee of the Ministry of Economic Development. I was responsible for foreign economic affairs with particular countries. I'm not going to elaborate on that right now. So we prepared for the confrontation against the West. In advance, we did our best to avoid the possible collateral damage. So there was a threat of swift switch off, so we created our own payment system. So we created our banking cards, MIR, which are accepted worldwide. So we prepared for all those measures by the West. So we also assumed that the European market would be closed for us, and the market of those countries where we provided our fuel to. And we prepared for that in advance. A couple of figures. The point is that there are refineries, oil refineries in Russia. They worked to the extent of 70% capacity because we exported oil. It was much easier for many companies. They had long-term contracts. So far, right now, all these refineries are working 200 capacity because we are enjoying high added value supply chain of oil. So the companies switched their pipelines to different consortiums and companies providing oil to them to different oil pipelines. I'm going to give you an example. A colleague of mine who works in a big company, he says, there was a special requirement, international requirement. We as oil exporting countries didn't have the right to spend our money, but in our industry right now we earn so much, we don't know what kind of new business to start, which is not going to be our core business. It proves that the Russian companies are starting to earn a lot of money, getting a lot of foreign exchange profit and earnings. So this very rapid appreciation of ruble says that in our current account there is a huge supply of foreign exchange in our budget. The West, together with and led by the US, were not right a strategic calculation of our steps. We enjoyed more benefits rather than drawbacks, and we earned a lot for 2022 particularly. Yes, we experienced huge expenses connected with the special military operation, but deducting those expenses and deducting other spending by the public, the budget would be enjoying surplus. So we earned more than we planned.
That's an important message I think people need to hear in the West, that the sanctions have not done what they're supposed to do. Now let's transition over to the military side. Well, it's sort of the political military. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, has just made a European trip. He has been in I'm trying to be politically correct, but I need to be on the begging mode. He is begging for assistance, begging for weapons, begging for money. What's your assessment of this? Is his trip going to succeed? Is NATO going to open up their bank vaults, their arsenals, and give Volodymyr Zelensky everything he's asking for? And if they do, is this going to have a meaningful impact on the battlefield for Russia?
I'll start with general trends. As the Security Council Secretary of Russia, which is a collective agency including 7 ministers and under the leadership of the president, says that we deal not with the Western countries, but with the countries which are under the control of the Western capital. It's multinational companies in some countries, particularly the military industry, and they dictate the terms what to do. What we are witnessing right now, we see that American corporations, military corporation enterprises, allocated different sectors in which they're going to work. And those areas, they are starting to kill European producers of armor and weapons. For example, Leopard tank provision says that the countries which are going to do that are going to have Abrams tanks instead of that, and they're going to sign new contracts. The same situation is true for the aircraft. Lockheed Martin company proposes buying F-35 jet fighters, and it is trying to kill Eurofighter company, Typhoon, which is headquartered in 4 countries, even though Germany is the headquarters of this consortium providing these aircraft, gave up the idea of using this, and they're going to buy F-35 jet fighter. So we are to see a huge fight on the battlefield, and like Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary of the US, says that the forthcoming months is going to be no return point. Now there is a step to take by Russia, and this huge offensive we're preparing for is going to be a huge acid test for the Ukrainian army, for their resistance. They will not be able to do something new because of the supply of tanks, jet fighters. This is summer and autumn time. Now the task is to stabilize the front and in summertime try to kill the land corridor to the Crimea. As for the Britain, we see right now that the Americans in Ukraine, apart from weakening Russia, are trying to test their military concepts. I'd like to remind all those audience that at the end of 2021, the American headquarters for training and tri-doc doctrine tried a new concept which is called Operation 2028, where they manifested that they are moving from the brigade system to the division system, and there's going to be a division of breakthrough, which are going to consist only of tanks, which huge high-tech engineering assistance, artillery systems, and special fighting helicopters. Right now, the formation of the tank division, of the so-called President Division, consisting of the West tanks, we see that the Americans will be shaping so-called the Division of Breakthrough in Ukraine for their counteroffense. Of course, the helicopters and jet fighters are required for that attempt. In their assistance package for 2023, we see that apart from other systems, they're going to provide 2,000, to be precise, 4,000 of special rockets and anti-tank rocket missiles, Hellfire probably, used by the fighting helicopters. So only the British leaders have these Apache American-produced helicopters, and we see that the Ukrainian pilots are being trained on these Apache helicopters. I believe that the first stage of this route is going to be asking for these helicopters, but without these helicopters, this called Breakthrough Division offensive will be impossible. And the second point, everybody is trying to understand which multifunctional jet fighters are going to be provided to Ukraine. We talked about F-16 and American jet fighters, and the destruction is going to have a huge impact on the American image. Of course, F-35 and F-16 in new modifications are not going to be provided, but this is the image, and you can sell these countries which are going to provide old Soviet jet fighters to Ukraine. So I do not rule out the opportunity that Typhoon are going to be provided by Britain. They have 180 Typhoon jet fighters, and since the majority stakeholders are not going to ask anyone to do that, as the British have F-35 and they're going to increase the number of these jet fighters. So for the American military industries, everything's going to be great.
When the United States started providing significant military resources in May, when they passed the new Lend-Lease Act, they call it $45 billion. And from May until July, August, this equipment was used to reconstitute a significant Ukrainian military force, which in September carried out a counteroffensive that compelled Russians to withdraw from the Kharkov region and the right bank of Kherson. And now Ukraine is talking about, as you alluded to, a new offensive focused on Mariupol, severing the land bridge, attacking Crimea. They were successful somewhat in September. Should Russia be concerned about this new offensive? Are the Ukrainians going to be able to capture Mariupol, to threaten Crimea? It sounds impressive. Apache helicopters, F-16 fighters, Leopard tanks. Is this something Russia's prepared to deal with?
We should be worried. We should be concerned, since this equipment is going to be used on the battlefield. We saw that in Kharkiv region, when the fast mobile groups on mobile platforms, Hamri, just provided special operations, and it compelled Russian forces to move. Every military doctrine understands that the resistance consists of three things: army, the capital, and the allies. The area, the territory is a kind of a checkmate board. That's what we are positioned on, since our defense was not based on the front line, but on special checkpoints. So the fast movement was very dangerous for our army. Right now, the front line and the defense line from Zaporozhye region to Melitopol, where Ukraine is planning to move to have this land corridor, has a very fortified engineering platform, and only tanks can go through that, and these mobile groups are not able to do this anymore. Apart from tanks, of course, a huge problem is going to be around 200 Humvee with TO2 sets, anti-tanks sets, and they are mobile, and they prove to be effective. Just one of the curious things, Javelin anti-tank missile rocket was not that effective, and the TO2 former version as our special equipment is more effective compared with Javelin. We're going to fight against it, but the question is, so when these special divisions are going to be shaped, when they're going going to move and start the offensive, we will be starting our own operations, and the front line may change a lot. Probably the front line within the military concept on big rivers, as in Kherson region, the defense line is along Dnieper, large river, and to move across Dnieper is not going to be very easy because our air jet fighters can prevent that. The Western countries and the Ukrainian forces have a huge advantage, which we have to fight against, and we cannot change that. This is a huge satellite system, the special renaissance satellite systems, which can online monitor the movement of our special and any types of forces. Apart from that, in autumn, there was a special contract with the Finnish private companies, which have satellites for Arctic surveillance, which can see the picture through the clouds. We do understand that, and we mask our movement. We create the false movements, false defense lines to fight against these satellite systems.